Hello, hello. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, hello there, everybody. Hope you guys are all having a fantastic day today so far. Uh, it's been a second since I've been streaming, but it's been a busy weekend. Good games all around. Um, Things are just going well, and honestly, if my schedule is good and everything should be, working out, I should be able to be doing streams today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. So that's uh, great. That's the plan. So how's everybody doing here today? Right, looks like we've got the bot active, so that's good. All right, so right now we are looking at not quite where we left off with weapons. Where we left off is actually going to be similar to what's here on the left, which is our drafting tab there. On our right is where I've pushed us forward just a bit here, adding in some tables and such, and mimicking the style of the armor section that we were doing a couple of days ago. We do still have the weapon property already preset up from last time, ready to go. So we'll be copying and pasting a lot of data from here into our updated tables and charts and such. Yeah, I think that's kind of the plan for today. The plan is just let's get weapons taken care of. Because I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of a slow process here of just going up and down the lists, talking about the weapons that we've got in the game, talking about the weapons we want to bring to the game, and building out what all they can do. And what all we can use, what all mechanically we can do to make the weapon designs in Underkeeper different, unique, and still, cool. Because like if you look at something like D&D 5e, a lot of it is just weapon names and like a couple of properties, but they all fundamentally do the same thing with a different die size. Fundamentally. You have a couple different properties here there that have like reach or something, but if you look to something like draw steel, the actual type of weapon doesn't matter. It is all about weapon categorization that works with your character's kits. And so what I'm trying to do with Underkeeper is I want to try and blend those two styles. I want there to be weapon names. I want each weapon to do things differently, to work differently, to feel like you're actually wielding that weapon in a fantasy context. That said, I do want, there to be modularity. I want there to be a system in place where you can have something like kits and loadouts, and players can pick up on those items, pick up on that stuff, and just use that to create their character concept. And I think I've got a good plan for how to do that with different armor qualities and such. We've got weapon properties, we've got weapon training. And so we can perhaps give a weapon training with certain martial kits. We can give additional weapon weapon proficiencies with kits. We can upgrade or downgrade. I don't know why we would downgrade. We can upgrade armor quality from your base class starting equipment with your kit. And I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do there. So yeah. It's also possible that we could just move proficiency in general to kits, but I feel like that might be a bit of a shift away from core class identity design, so we're going to need to kind of pull that idea back and kind of take a broader approach to it and see how that works. But until then, what we need to do is we need to have functional weapons. We need to have functional implements, tools. We do have tools in the game, which is great. Now, as far as organization goes there, actually, let's go ahead and pull up our core rule book here. I always grab that one first by accident because Google has a tablet. And that is very funny and sad to me because I'd love to have one text document here that has all of the core rules in it. It just can't happen. So thank you, Google. Okay, so where we're working right now is we are working within Chapter 7 here, your adventuring equipment. It says that is going to be your kits, your armor, and your weapons. Kits are going to be something that we design in a future stream once we have a proper understanding of how to blend proficiency, quality, and different tiers as a part of the weapon and armor upgrade paths, enchantment systems, and the like. Armor we just did. Armor is honestly in a great state as far as I'm concerned. Armor and shields. Where we have the rules laid out here, we've got several different options. We have it all being mathematically well defined. We have curves to it that make sense. We even built in a part of an in-game economy that seems functional, though requires playtesting. So no, I feel very good about where we are with shields, and I want to get weapons to that. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And if we can't get through it all today, tomorrow as well. But we're shooting for today. Okay, so I genuinely hate this Gemini pop-up at the bottom here. It is awful, and I will never use it. Okay, so what we are to do is let's go ahead and I'm going to go over this sort of stuff that I've done off stream here so that I can get you all caught up. So, off stream, I have done kind of just the basics. I've written up a couple of sample paragraphs here. We're actually going to have to still finish up the non-proficiency with weapons section, but that'll be fine. So, weapons come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes, from the short sword to the longbow. Regardless of classification or name, weapons exist to deal damage regardless of the target. We're not getting this. To a target. We're not using regardless twice in this thing in the same sentence. To a target. The weapons table shows the most common weapons in the Underkeeper RPG. Their typical value. In the Underkeeper RPG, the damage they deal when they hit, and any special properties they possess. Weapons are grouped into categories primarily based on their features and simplicity to wield. These categories pertain to what training is needed to become proficient in a weapon's use, simple versus martial, the weapon's use, and we need an hit. And the weapon's usefulness either in close combat, melee, or at distance, ranged, which includes both thrown and projectile weapons. And then we have a table here. We're going to be filling in and probably making some adjustments to either damage dice. We're going to be adding in the range column here, so that was a later addition as I was kind of prepping this. Actually, let me just go ahead and reset all of these to the Twitch pen here. Go. And there we go. And then we've just got a list of properties here. So one, you can either take this list of properties and cross-reference it with the appendix at the back of the book. And that will kind of give you what your weapons can do. Or you can still just kind of continue down into the RPG, where inside of each of these weapon charts here, we can actually, that's the section, scroll down here, and you will get properties, and it will list out the full blurb that we wrote up for the section in the back there. As far as things like page count and such, this is more inefficient, but as far as usability goes, I think that that is going to trump it. And so whenever I can make something that is more useful for a player in the game, I want to do that, barring any other considerations, like, once again, page count versus, cost. Like, I want this RPG to be a good value. I want this to be usable by a player base rather than just to be jumping back and forth throughout the book without, clear guidance. So creating a character, having weapon information, you can just copy all of this down onto maybe an index card or an area on your character sheet, and it should just work. So let's go ahead and get tweaking on the wielding weapons without proficiency. Oh, hang on. I didn't read the other parts of it. So, weapon proficiency. Tools and weapons are commonly available across the world, and heroes picking up a torch, pitchfork, or scythe against threats and monsters is a tale as old as time. A character's experience with the implements they wield is reflected by their proficiency. Proficiency with a weapon allows you to roll your proficiency die alongside your core dice whenever you make an attack with a weapon you are wielding. If you make an attack roll using a weapon with which you lack proficiency, you do not add your proficiency die to the attack stat. Actually, I think that just covers the entire rest of that section. Characters typically gain their weapon proficiencies from their class. Players who wish to equip their characters with weapons not listed as proficient on their class table can gain proficiency by taking a weapon proficiency talent. Weapon training. Alongside a character's weapon proficiencies, your class will also note if your character gains the weapon training feature. Weapon training allows a character to select individual weapons to gain additional benefits with outside of proficiency. These additional features are noted alongside each item's description. For example, a character trained to use a quarterstaff has advantage when performing the charge action due to the Stormer property, and can and can inflict an opponent with the dazed condition when they roll a tier 3 or 4 result on an attack through the falter flourish. So the reason we have a wielding weapons without proficiency section here is exclusively due. Did I really close that over? Oh no, I didn't. Is exclusively due to the fact that we had a similar section for armor. However, the reason we had it for armor was because armor proficiency comes like in such a way that not being proficient in armor is going to give you certain detriments to your character's performance in combat scenarios or just kind of general. And so weapons are going to be a little bit different in that it's just going to be, if you're proficient in it, you can roll your proficiency die alongside it. You have basic properties, you're going to get that no matter what. So since we already mentioned if you make an attack roll using a weapon with which you lack proficiency, you don't add your proficiency die to the attack's die. So I think we're just good to cut this entire section here since it's already covered. And that puts us in a good spot to begin the process of bringing over weapon tables, talking about the weapons that are included in the game, and updating their information. So let's go ahead and jump back to our options here. Or not options, our oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Our reference, our previous version. That's the best way, I guess. Okay. All good. Okay, so I'm gonna just add a bunch of spaces here. Let's flip this around. That way, where we're copying it to is unimpeded by my face and the bounds of the camera box here. So simple weapon here, boomerang. That's going to be our first one. We have these ordered alphabetically. There are some errors there, and so we're going to be fixing that as well. Okay, so boomerang. So what we need to do here is we're not going to be solving the range issue right now, but we're going to be getting rid of, for one, this area here where it is attacks, because this is a simple ranged weapon, and so you're going to be able to make a ranged basic attack with it by taking the ranged basic attack option. Or rulebook here, and then if I jump over to actions, ranged basic attack, there we go. So what we have here as far as action oriented design is, we have an action here. It's going to specify the attack attribute. It's going to specify the defense. So right now, that's all that this is saying right here. It says attacks. You can make a ranged basic attack with agility versus reflex. But all of our actions, be they basic, be they special, are going to have attack attribute and defense. So we don't need to have that here. So what else do we have here? We have that it's a ranged basic attack. Well, the ranged basic attack has the implement of a ranged weapon. And so if we need to call and say, hey, we're doing a ranged basic attack or a ranged weapon attack, one, it's going to use the ranged weapon attack table here built into the ranged basic attack, and we can just call for the implement being a ranged weapon. So that means a ranger here can make a ranged weapon attack. That requires a ranged weapon, but it's just not called the ranged basic attack feature, probably because it will do something else as a part of the core text here. So we don't need to call this out with the weapon. What we're going to do is, I believe we can just delete that row. There we go. And that, because of the way we've organized how this table works in previous editions, we have this honestly pretty nice structure where there are little spaces in between and around each of these areas here. So we have one table that has all of this in one cell, then this I believe is just its own table, and then this itself is, I think it's two tables. Yeah, each of these are their own tables, all nested within the same area. So boomerang here, what are we going to do? We are going to go back to our drafting tab here, and then we're going to go down to our properties and flourishes, and we're just going to replace these options here. So returning weapon, since it's doing the exact same thing, we're just going to go ahead and update the language here. Actually, hang on. I'm going to ruin my formatting here for a second. That's going to be... Since, as far as spacing goes for our current version of the RPG, we don't have line spacing following each of these sections here. I'm going to go ahead and just remove line spacing from our copy text, and then we can add that back in. Though, once again, this is the interstitial drafting, so it's not mandatory. This part of the text is not going to be seeing the light of day because it's already been copied into the appendix and formatted properly for the book itself. So yeah, returning weapon. Right here. Copy. And then we have falter. Then wound did not change, so that's good. Falter. Oh, and because all of these here do have multiple, you know what? Now, let's keep the keep the spacing, and then we can just deal with it later. Just because weapons will have multiple properties, so then we can go ahead and paste. There we go. So that is the updated boomerang. What we need to do here is we'll need to have description, we'll have similar weapons and such, but that's going to just be something I probably do off stream, because it's just going to be looking through historical documents and finding similar weapons to boomerangs, and then just adding a description from like dictionary.com or something. Just a basic, this is what this does sort of thing. Alright, second weapon here is going to be everyone's favorite, the club. I guess we're going to leave one space there, so that'll be fine. Give it a bit of breathing there. Clubs deal bludgeoning damage there. We're going to get rid of this row here. There we go. And now we jump to our drafting tab here and go for the Stormer property. And we can then remove that space after paragraph, and it looks good. We've got everything taken care of. Falter here. Let's just copy it from above here since it's going to be the exact same. There we go. All right, dagger, the first of kind of many specialty designed ones. Not specialty designed, but just like classical fantasy gear. Like if you have a rogue, they're probably going to have a dagger. That's what I mean. So dagger, simple weapon. Now this is a weapon that is both ranged and thrown. So we can have range here as that, and then we also have reach, which is melee 5. So we can get rid of this row here as per standard, and now let's go ahead and copy its properties that we redid on a previous stream on over. So that's going to be backstabber here. That's going to be versatile. Actually, hang on. Finesse would come before versatile because we're trying to keep this alphabetized. Versatile. There we go. We can get rid of those two there. And since versatile is the last one there, we're going to go ahead and just remove its line. There we go. And the dagger only has wound as a flourish, and so therefore it stays the same. Alright. I think we're making pretty decent progress here. Back to our drafting area. Actually, is there any reason why we shouldn't just copy and select everything? I feel like that's going to save us from a lot of back and forth. Let's at least go to the end of the symbol. All right. Then if I go to my functionally word bank here, we can go to the dart. So first things first, delete this row. We're just going to copy and paste text. All right, there we go. Dart is updated. Great Club. Delete row. Then we've got a lot more properties here. First start off with Boorish Strike. And siege implement and store. Finally, two-handed. And then, since two-handed is the last, what do? We remove this. And we have crush and decelerate. So let's go ahead and, since those two just appear naturally next to each other, go. Hatchet has both reach and range similar to daggers. All right. There is that. Okay. Sorry, I'm just thinking things through. All right, light crossbow here. Finesse, loading, sneak attack. And sneak attack. Go. Now, crossbows here do not get the swift quiver property, as we discussed when we were reworking that and figuring out the logistics for how to balance weapon loading. So that's going to require a minor action here. Here, let's go ahead and make sure that we're kind of where we want this to be. I think the light crossbow here should probably be, instead of a 1d8 piercing, I think this should probably be our only 1d10 piercing damage simple weapon. Once again, to account for that bonus damage. And the additional action requirement by loading. There we go. Let's go ahead and change that. All right, wound, that stays the same. Okay. So siege implement here for the mace. And then Flourish, we have Atrophy and Crush here. So because all of these are different, then each of these weapons is mechanically different. Morningstar. Morningstar is interesting in that it does 2d4 damage. You're 1d4 bludgeoning and 1d4. So let's go ahead and change that on our weapon statement because I know we have that in here. So 1d4 bludgeoning and 1d4 piercing. There we go. Actually, if we do reach as one column and range as another, that might be bad. Left. Yep, I know it's going to mess everything up there. Reach. Set this to purple. Is. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump back into our table options here. What we want this to be is so that says 1d12 bludgeoning, and that's all going to stay on the same. Go. And so then reach and range will be both the same. 1037, 1037. That seems pretty reasonable. Actually, let's just make it a nice and simple. This section here, unfortunately, is going to shrink. It's 6.5 is. That just looks, man, that looks awful. So let's see if we can get these two columns here shrunk down a little bit more. Since they're the ones who are primarily cutting into it. So let's go with 0.8s there. That should get this another. Already much better. Because some of these are already gonna have. So if we go one is too small. 1.1 that looks. I can live with the crossbows being too small. Don't love that it's now unarmed strike. Genuinely do. Okay, I think that'll be for right. Okay, so go back to our properties area. We can jump back to what we do. We just did Atrophy and Crush there, so Morning Star. Properties. This is a two-handed weapon. Alternate. This is a simple. Those are. I mean, it's 2d4, so it is. I mean, 2d4, so average of d4 is 2.5. That's an average of 5 damage. Falter and Sunder. Falter makes sense. That is a simple. Thunder is one of the strong ones that we don't use. I'm willing to let it live there because I believe Sunder is a property of lights. We don't use Sunder often for good reason. Then we get rid of this row. All right. So Boris Strike here trained is something we're going to want to. Sorry, I caught myself here because you were supposed to have dice listed here. So 1d(x) train. So one damage die above this here for Boris Strike. I guess this would be a 1d10. Yeah. Siege Import also. Okay. Sorry, I'm just double checking my stuff, my work here. Club is a d6. Great Club starts as a d8. It can be a d10. Do we have a... I don't think there are any martial clubs. Not that that makes really that much sense. Clubs are very much the archetypal symbol. Battle axe, broadsword, cutlass, flail, glaive, greatsword, halberd, heavy crossbow, lance, longbow, longsword, maul, rapier, scimitar, short sword, trident, shuriken, and warhammer. Yep. So okay, we can have that great club there be our D10 club, I guess. Hatchet, finesse. That just gives advantage. Versatile. That gives switching. Light crossbow. Finesse is advantage. Loading is loading. Sneak attack raise 1 W. And that W is now a D10. Siege implement here is going to be 1d8. Two-handed quarterstaff. All right. Let's go ahead and actually check through our list over here, make sure we can have our call-outs. Adroit. That's going to get a 1dx. Autonomy doesn't. Backstabber does not. War Strike does. Cavalier Strike does not. Dead Eye does not. Neither does Finesse. Heavy Weaponry Loading. Phalanx Formation does. Okay. Reach does not. Returning Weapon doesn't. Siege Implement does. Sneak Attacker does not. Stormer doesn't. Swift Quiver doesn't. Two-handed doesn't. Okay. Atrophy won't. Concuss won't. Crush won't. Decelerate won't. Disarmament does not. Falter does not. Grappling Strike does not. Rend does. Sunder does not, Tripping Strike does not, and Wound, of course, does not. Alright, so there we go. We've got all of those ready for us to go there. So, Adroit. And then this 1dx becomes a 1d8. Stormer. First attack. This is just kind of a small. Okay. I know that is genuinely one of the small things that does that, because we're going to just be getting rid of it. For right now, I like to just see that, hey, we changed a good bit, and that feels right to me. There we go. Cool. Alright, got all of that updated and adapted. So we can run back to our quarterstaff here, Falter and Wound. Neither of which changed. Alright, Scythe here. So we are going to go ahead and delete that row. Two-handed. It's a Scythe. It gets the simple tag here because it is farming. Primarily. we forgot to get rid of the. Alright, so the scythe is a two-handed weapon that has the flourish of. So this is going to just be pretty good. I feel if I was playing this game, I would be wielding a weapon that does range. Okay, so it does 2d4 slashing at its base. I don't love the idea that Rend does the same weapon damage per round of combat thereafter. That said, it's still pretty good, so I feel like maybe a one-step reduction, so 2d4 slashing is roughly 5 damage. So then roughly 5 damage would be 1d10 at 5.5, so 1d8 then at 4.5 average damage. Maximum is 8, minimum is 1, whereas standard damage here is minimum of 2, maximum of 8. So if this does 1d8, that would be a half point reduction damage. So if we have that as our rend damage, it's still almost the same, but it's also then just 1 die that we roll instead of 2. And I like the idea that all of these properties are just going to be changing things to 1 die, or like these flourishes. I think that's going to be. Yeah. Here, let me go ahead and get a quick drink. I'll be right back. Okay. Actually, let's just keep. I'll be fine. Okay, so we've got Rend there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the short bow here. This is a ranged weapon, so we can get rid of this area here the same way we've deleted everything else here. Deleting that row. Alright, so we've got a good number of properties here. Finesse, loading, swift quiver, 2. Well, let's go ahead and get Swift Quiver and 2-handed out there. Get rid of that space. Okay, so finesse and loading. Short bow on base does 1d8 piercing damage. That's fine. Alright, and flourish is it's just wound. Sickle. Get rid of this right here. Properties finesse and versatile. Flourish wound there, that's fine. Sling. Okay, so this is going to be a small one. Loading there. Falter dazed. Why can't this concuss? You know what? Executive decision, it will. Concuss and falter. Falter doesn't change, so we're just going to add concuss here. Because otherwise this feels... loading, concuss, falter. Go. Okay, so spear here. Spear is reach or range. Alright, so this is where we get phalanx formation. Makes sense, it's a pull. Phalanx formation says takes 1d8 piercing damage. And that's a free attack. Whenever you take the defend reaction, that mildly bothers me. Okay, go. So, Phalanx Formation, when we take the defend reaction, we block damage. We are also holding our spear kind of at the ready. So we're going to just kind of be able to get a quick attack in. Would that be a full attack? Would that be a full weapon die of damage? Let's go ahead and say yes for it. Once again, because this is a trained property, so like, this is you knowing how to use your weapon. Reach has new text. Stormer has new text. And then Versatile, I believe, also has new text. All new text. Okay. That's fine. Alright, so that is going to be our new spear. So we have Phalanx Formation. When you take the defend reaction, you get to stab in on your opponent because you're trained with using this specific reach. That means our melee range is going to be 10 feet at a base instead of 5 feet, so we can attack at range. Well, not at range, but at a 2 square differential instead of a 1 square difference. Stormer is going to give us advantage on charges, and Versatile means we can use might or agility. Yeah. Alright. Our weapon flourishes are Decelerate and Wound. So Decelerate is getting a minor change that just lasts until end of turn instead of start of turn. Just because Decelerate is a pseudo condition rather than a full condition. So we have that going there. Unarmed Strike, 1d4 bludgeoning, melee weapon attack. We can do this whole row. Autonomy. I don't believe autonomy has changed. No, it has not. Wound has not changed, so unarmed strike is all good to go. So let's see here. Um. Sorry, just always checking data. Side here. All right. So whips. We can get rid of this attack row here. Properties, finesse. Yes. Disarmament, grappling strike, tripping strike. Oh boy. Um. All right. So disarmament, grappling strike, tripping strike. All right. There we go. So that's going to get rid of all of our TN constrictions that we had in when this was a 5e style weapon mod. Grappling strike there. Then tripping strike. Alright, cool. Wound stays the same. So I believe whips, that would be the end of our simple weapons there. Very nice. Love to see it. So let's go ahead and jump down to our martial weapon. Add in a bunch of lines there. Go over to our drafting tab. We're going to start with a battle axe. Cool. And we go all the way down here through, not that far, through the warhammer. Oh, it did not get everything. Okay. Okay, there we go. Sorry, copy and paste is a bit annoying. Just because of how these tables work, being that they're nested inside of one another, it makes this a bit annoying. Which, on one hand, it shouldn't bother me because the game is not going to be published as a Google Doc file. It's going to be published in a book that is going to be well laid out, that we'll do on stream, or at least I'll show parts of it on stream. I love laying things out here and doing things like that, but I also can't deny the fact that it's working. So that should be everything there. Just having trouble with the page. Give it some time to process. And yes. One thing that we already know that we need to do here is Trident is in the wrong space. QRST. Alright, so back to the top, martial weapons here. A lot of these changes are going to be similar. So let's go ahead and head back to drafting and head down here to our properties. Let's go ahead and see what needs to be done here. We've got adroit 1d12. Yeah. Crush, rend, and wound. Once again, it's not a major part of this game, but I do want this to feel cool while you're reading. Yeah, when you have a battle axe, you can crush, rend. That sounds very much like what a barbarian or a berserker in this game would want to do. Crush, go. Rend. Rend here, it was saying it's going to be 1d6. Oh, right, because we always had it plugged in at 1d6. To rend here with a battle axe. You know, I'm going to keep to the thing that we did with the whip there and say that it's going to be 1 damage die reduced. So 1d10, so this is going to be 1d8. Which actually is a slight buff to the battle axe then, because it was up from 1d6. Broadsword here. That row. Adroit 1d10. Then we have Atrophy, Decelerate, and Wound as our weapon functions. Alright, there we go. Since wound always stays the same, there we go. We are good to continue on to the cutlass. So this is going to be your kind of standard pirate sword here. As far as formatting goes here, we can get rid of that row. It's going to deal 2d4 slashing damage. We have properties here that are backstabber, versatile, and accelerate. Right. So backstabber is going to be, because it fits the pirate theme here, it's going to be this updated text to give ourselves bonus damage on stunned opponents once per turn or with surprise rounds. Once again, leading into that sort of pirates with a cutlass, they're going to get surprise on you or leap over bounds of your ship and start attacking because they have that element of surprise, because they have that element of fear, they're going to get a little bit more of a bonus. There we go, and versatile. All right, flail here. Flails are going to be... Flails are useful in that they can get over shields, and so you can attack at someone and then just kind of whip this thing around and it's going to hit them in the head. And that is useful that way. So Detroit, wielding with 1d10. Yeah, sure. Do we have a shield breaking sort of thing here? Cannot use armor points to defend against fortitude. Cannot use armor points to defend against build. Yes, and then we can also slow. Okay, so that fits the fantasy. That fits the fantasy. I feel comfortable with saying. Atrophy, concuss, crush. Once again, because these are all just different options, you're only going to be really applying one of them at a time. So having a long list here like this doesn't really strike me as an issue or a concern. It's just because you're going to be performing a flourish, which is one flourish per turn. So that means we can cut down their ability to defend with fortitude, will, or just we can slow them. Glaive, we've got a polearm here. Let's go ahead and get throw as usual, reach and two-handed. A classic pairing for a polearm. And then we can get rid of line spacing here. Then we have Rend and Wound. Rend is going to be our bleed condition here. I feel like this one, yeah, it is just 1d6, but I feel like this one should be a little bit worse. Maybe that's just me. I mean, it would be worse. It's d8 instead. And that's following the same process of one step down that we established with the whip and continued with the whatchamacallit, battle axe there. Yeah. Yep. Alright, great sword here. Great sword is our, I believe it's going to be our biggest damage dealing weapon here at 2d6. We do have d12 weapons, but d12 is kind of the cap there. And so d12 is going to be minimum of 1, maximum of 12, average of 6.5, whereas 2d6 here is going to be minimum of 2, maximum of 12 with an average of 7. So this 2d6 is going to be our strongest type of weapon. And so once again, it's the great sword. As far as raw damage output, of course. So properties here, two-handed. So I think a lot of the fact this doesn't have a lot of flourishes or properties is because it is on the higher end as far as damage is concerned. So yeah, most players, human fighter characters are going to be wielding great swords. And so yeah, they'll just be going into battle like attacking. They'll be able to atrophy. They'll reduce your ability to defend against fortitude, which gives them additional chances to attack you, since this is a melee weapon that usually is going to target your foe. So yeah, halberd here, another polearm. So actually, let me just go back up to the glaive since we just did that. Copy its pairing of reach and two-handed. And just kind of plug that in, since that is common across all pole arms in this game. Delete that. row there of vestigial data. And then we have Tripping Strike as a part of our go, and there we go. Alright, heavy crossbow. Starts out with a base of 1d12 piercing, which is strong. Once again, other than like the greatsword, this is one of the higher damage dealing weapons in the game. So we start off with the properties, as always. Heavy weaponry loading into. And then we can go ahead and move spacing there. Flourishes. This is where the heavy crossbow is going to shine. So once again, we start with that nasty 1d12 piercing damage per hit. Once again, and that can scale up to, like, at first level here, that can go, I believe it's 1, 2, 2, 3, so that can start off at 3d12 on a hit, on a, critical hit. Tier 4 weapon result with a flourish. And so then, so it starts at 3d12. We can then add on a wounded, so that's 4d12. Once again, nasty hit. That's going to one-shot a lot of characters there. Then we can either Sunder, which is going to reduce the opponent's ability to defend instead of wound, so that's 3d12 and the opponent can't defend. We can Rend, and they'll start bleeding out if they're not already dead. And then Crush. So that's one of the things that, like, sure, loading, you're going to have to take a minor action on your turn to get this thing going, but it makes up for it. I promise that these things should be good in making up for it. And once again, crossbows are going to have strong range. You can just snipe someone with this horrible concoction weaponry. Like, this thing should be kind of scary in a skilled user's hand. Okay, so Crush, Rend, Sunder. So, like, Greatsword here is designed for new players who want, the classic sword. The classic sword fantasy where you're going to have, a very strong sword. You're going to wield it two-handed. It's nice, easy to pick up, and just kind of go off to the races with. Short bow, long bow, very good for the classic ranger fantasy look. Crossbows, I imagine, are going to be rather stigmatized at the start because, one, you're going to have to deal with loading. And so that means you're going to have to eat up your action economy in order to properly use this weapon. I think more experienced players and GMs will start to quite like doing that, quite like crossbows either as villain weaponry or as player character weaponry when they get a chance to rotate into a player's seat. And so therefore crossbows will kind of take on this sort of more prestige role where it is sacrificing action economy in order to deal in incredible damage on hits. Because, like, if you have a team member and you're playing a ranger with a heavy crossbow, you're not going to be moving as fast because of heavy weaponry. But take the tag team action and, like, someone ends their turn right next to you. So that's going to be major action, heavy crossbow shot. Second major action, you could do another heavy crossbow shot and get 2 of these flourishes on. And so I feel like that's going to be something that is a powerful combo, and that is going to make up for the detriment of the loading property. So Sunder. Wound, of course, is staying the same. There we go. Lance. Polearm here, but it is a lighter polearm. So it is not requiring two-handed, but it will require reach. Well, not require reach, it just gives reach as a benefit. But this is the one where Cavalier Strike. I think this is the first time we're using Cavalier Strike, and I think it might be the only weapon that is designed for this specifically. So yeah. Then it gets Sunder, which is, once again, one of the stronger conditions. So it's rather simple, but one of the stronger flourish pseudo conditions here. The longbow here. Once again, longbow is it's going to be a lot in the properties here, and similar to the heavy crossbow, but also kind of in opposition to it. Heavy crossbow has a number of properties: heavy weaponry, detriment; loading, detriment; two-handed can be seen as a bit of a detriment. So it's going to make you slower. You have to use a minor action, and you have to wield it with two hands. But the flourish output here is high. Whereas if we look at the longbow here, Deadeye, we have a bonus to weapon once per turn. It's going to be a little bit different there, but during like a surprise round. So that's good. Heavy weaponry, so that's a detriment there. Loading, that's a detriment, but it is cancelled out by swift here. And two-handed, which would be the same sort of mild detriment. So you've got a damage bonus here in Deadeye, which circumstantially will put it in a similar ballpark as far as damage output. It has a 1d10 piercing damage die, so that is going to be strong, but not as strong as the crossbow. But it circumstantially can hit up to about that point, since Deadeye is an automatic trigger that lives in properties rather than as a flourish. And then our flourishes here are minimal in that it is decelerate, so just reducing reflex defenses, and then wound. So I think that those two can balance and kind of live side by side, because the ease of use that a longbow has here, once again, for properties that is kind of a more complex weapon, is the longbow is still easier to use, since five properties. Two of these properties cancel each other out functionally. One of which, like, I think that they can live together. Okay, so yeah, Deadeye here. Let's go ahead and get these all plugged in, because yeah, Deadeye changed basically completely. So this is during a surprise round or against a faraway opponent. So this is also giving you that sort of sniper-like feel. So once again, very circumstantial as far as like how that's going to work on heavy weaponry and loading. Swift quiver and two-handed. All right, and then flourishes, once again, only two. We don't have as many options. So that way, you know, the longbow does not step on the toes of the crossbow. All right, long sword. Get rid of that basic attacks row. Oop, man, I've been forgetting to do that a couple of times. Why haven't you guys been telling me about this? Delete that row. There we go. All right. I think we are back to where we want to be there. All right, longsword. Basic properties here: adroit. So that's going to be 1d10, 1 damage die step up. So when we wield it with 2 hands, it does 1d10 instead of 1d8. This is the weapon that my character currently wields in my current D&D campaign, and so it's actually going to be the same thing here, just 1d8, 1d10. Versatile, falter, has other properties and flourishes here. So versatile, right here at the bottom. So it just lets us use might or agility for attack rolls. Which on one hand is kind of what that says, but we're just updating the language. Move space there. All right, and then falter here. So that's going to daze. Actually, that's completely the same between versions here. So we can just be good to go. So falter inflicts the dazed condition, which removes a character's proficiency in making attack rolls. And then wound is just bonus damage on a critical. And once again, this takes the place of the critical hit. So just view flourishes as critical effects. So instead of dealing more damage on a crit, you wound your opponent. If you're trained in the weapon, you can either wound or you can falter them, which gives a different effect at the cost of your bonus damage. Alright, Maul. Okay, so we have two-handed and crush, which is rather small as far as what this is. It's a rather simple weapon to wield, but it is not a simple weapon because it deals more damage. Short. Go ahead and boom and boom. And then the crush property here is slowed, so yeah, that's going to be the exact same. Ooh. All right, rapier, a classic fantasy weapon here. So we have kind of a nice little cocktail of quick and kind of light, easy sword work properties. Backstabber, which is going to give you a little bit more damage on a consistent basis when you can surprise or attack a stunned target. Very much leaning into a sort of theatricality blade. We have finesse, which... Hang on a second, I need to take a look at okay, so when you're wielding this and no other weapons, it's advantaged. So, once again, we changed it from there because otherwise this would be property stacking, and that would have gotten to kind of insane levels. So yeah, backstabber, we've got finesse. So if you're wielding this weapon, you have advantage on your attacks, and you have this sort of charismatic bravado of cutting into opponents that you stun or opponents that you attack during a surprise round. And then versatile is just might or agility, just by default. So yeah, let's go ahead and get these properties brought on. Then flourishes is just wound. Because this is a rather property heavy weapon, the flourishes are a little bit more restrained. Right, there we go, and remove that bonus space there. All right, scimitar. Scimitar is a weapon that I kind of like as far as just what my characters will often do. So finesse and versatile does 1d8 slashing at the base, which is just, you know, it's cool. Not really. It fits into that niche as far as I have. Hang on, it's actually just, that's the armor spreadsheet there. Where weapon tables. There we go. That should do it. Yeah, no, I was mapping out where all weapons should be. And kind of what all flourishes and critical effects they should have. What all we need to have at our first draft of the glossary there. But yeah. And we were updating kind of to make sure we covered most of, well, so we covered all of the weapon damage dies, and then totals here. Like, everything here exists for a reason. There are, I'm doing my best to make sure that there aren't any holes in the weapon list for the game. Once again, it's designed so that people can homebrew for it, but like, I want this to be a complete product, a complete game at the base. Alright, so flourishes here, we start with Rend. Rend will deal 1 die reduced, so that's going to be 1d6. So that's going to be the same as what Rend would normally do, which is fine. And wound. Okay. So short sword here, 1d8. Move this row. Properties, finesse. Alright. So that's just a quick way to get advantage here. It won't apply if you're doing kind of a sort of gladiator style situation, but that's okay. There we go. And then our flourishes are atrophy, decelerate, and wound. Once again, more flourishes to less properties. That's just kind of the general pattern here. Okay, and then shurikens here. So this is going to be a ranged weapon that does strong damage. So we start with finesse and sneak attacker as our properties. And yeah, shuriken. These are ninja stars. I'm not familiar with the proper term there. Finesse. There we go. Alright, and so what do these weapons do? Since they have stronger properties here, finesse, if you are kind of playing a monk character or using like the pugilist class to engage and you want something that is ranged combat, if you're not wielding any other weapons, you can pull these out and you have advantage. Sneak attacker, if you attack during a surprise round, you deal bonus damage. And once again, that bonus damage is a flat 1W bonus damage, so that's going to turn your 1d8 from a 1-2-2-3 to a 2-3-3-4, which is, once again, strong. And then you have flourishes on top of that, which is atrophy, which, you know, basically is a chink in the armor. And then you have rend, which is bleed. And so bleed is going to deal 1d6 here. Let's go ahead and get those properties, these updated properties, plugged into. our weapon tables. All right. Okay, so Trident here actually has a couple of changes that I made because it had a bit of an overlap here with the short sword. Or I had a bit of an overlap with some of the other ones here. And it overall was just kind of underdeveloped and seemed like a kind of why would you choose to use this sort of thing. So it at base has reach and two-handed, which one is a benefit, one is a bit of a detriment there. And so, as a result of that, it is going to have some of the better functions. Originally, it just had wound, so like this would have been a very bog standard, very quick grab weapon, but it wasn't going to be very efficient. So like that feels a bit wrong to me. So once again, that's why we're giving it better properties. We're going to start with Rend and Sunder. So that way we can bleed, and then we can cut down the opponent's ability to defend. So Rend is going to hit at 1d6. So this is one of the lighter Rend bleed effects that we have here, because at its base the Trident does 1d8 piercing. But Sunder also exists here, so once we've broken the armor, the opponent's weapons, we can just kind of make sure that they are open. And then Warhammer it's going to be rather high on the bludgeoning damage side, and then it has Siege Implement, two-handed, and then is going to excel with its. Honestly, if there is a counter to the heavy crossbow in this game, it's probably going to be something like the Warhammer. But they're going to be completely different styles of gameplay, whereas the heavy crossbow is all about sniping an opponent, hitting them with large bleed damage, hitting them with just large damage in general. The Warhammer is all about basically just breaking. So Siege Implement, it's going to deal a lot more damage to buildings, structures, that sort of thing. Usually this is going to be a step up. Hang on a second. So Siege Implement exists 7 times. I don't want that. So 1d10. Yeah, this is one step up. So Great Club there. One step up from the base. 1d12 is the kind of highest single die. And we want our properties to remain single dies. So one step up from 1d12 here would be 1d12. And I don't think we want a weapon that has that swinginess to it. So, way to do this would be one step up from here is going to be 2d6. 2d6 is an average of 0.5 damage above, which I don't feel like is. I feel like that's just that's going to be more or less considered a lateral move here, when this is meant to be. So I think we're going to break our pattern here, and Siege Implement might be like a 3d6. So that would be. Hang on, let's math this out. So Siege Implement presently is saying double damage. So that's going to be 2d12, minimum of 2, maximum of 24, average of 6.5 and 6.5. So that's going to be an average of 13. 3d6 is going to be minimum of 3, maximum of 18. average on one is going to be what, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, that's 7, plus another 3.5, that's going to be 10.5, 10.5 to 12. So it's still a little bit less than what Siege Implement would be doing there. It's less swingy though. It's a lot less swingy. Has a very good bell curve there with 3d6 rather than 2d12. So do we want the Warhammer here to be consistent, or do we want it to be more powerful? Once again, since this is Siege Implement, this is going to be attacking walls and structures and stuff. Siege Implement isn't going to necessarily be useful for like fighting constructs. So I think we can get away with putting this at like a 2d12. Yeah. Means your dwarf wielding a warhammer is gonna hit like a goddamn drum when attacking walls. Two-handed here. It's a warhammer. You're wielding this with two hands. It's stronger than a sledgehammer. Flourish is concuss, no shit, crush, decelerate, wound. I think that might just be the first few. Concuss, crush, decelerate. Yup. Let's go ahead and just kind of get those all grabbed there. And drop those in. Alright. So that should be the weapon tables here, because we don't, as well, we are going to do firearms and such. We go back to our track. We were pitching, working on like those ideas. Where are we? Oh, the idea was putting them in core rule book 2, which isn't a bad idea. Yeah, we have ideas for other weapons that we could include. We have a cudgel, like a small hammer here. Brass knuckle, so that's just going to be a damage die size up from a whatchamacallit, unarmed strike. A war fan, slashing here with reach. The reason a lot of these got cut is this reach shift is a much more complicated maneuver, where it is while you're wielding this, you have a reach of 10 feet, but whenever you make an attack against a creature that is outside of your basic melee range, you can shift, which is very nice to create this sort of dancer-like movement on the battlefield. It is actually something that shows up with the chakram as a martial weapon in a second. We also have the meteor hammer, which is just kind of a step up from the whip. Then we have martial weapons here. We have a sai, which has variant disarmament, which not sure what makes this different. Okay. Once again, these are things that we don't have kind of implemented into the game right now. These are cut. This is cut that we can implement again later on. Great mace. I think that this one here. Why would this fall? Probably just because I think its niche is already filled. Atrophy, crush, decelerate. Heavy weaponry, siege, stormer, two-hand. Like that feels very standard. It doesn't feel like something that someone would like want to choose for themselves. That is going to feel meaningfully different than some of the other weapons in the core. Chakram here, once again, I quite like this as a weapon. The reason I think it got I'm pretty sure it got cut, is reach shift, which is once again a bit of a quirky ability here. Not that it wouldn't have that it doesn't have a place in the game. I think it does. Warfan and Chakram are great ideas for weapons, and I think if I do, well, no, not if I do, when I do more content for this game, they will show up with a feature that is something along those lines. It's just right now we want to get the core pieces of the game out of the way, and so having a reach property and then a reach shift property is going to muddy the waters just a little bit. We also threw returning weapon on here, so that doesn't just live on the boomerang. So if we throw the chakram, it will return to us. Which, once again, that's not really how they work, but it's very cool and thematic. And that's the sort of thing that I want to try and emphasize with game design and like with the gameplay of this game. We have the war pick here, which is, in short, kind of the whatchamacallit, Warhammer but piercing. We have a machete. We have the tonfa, that was a recommendation by my girlfriend who does martial arts, and I feel bad about cutting it here, but it more than anything is just kind of an extension of brass knuckles, so that it was kind of a step up. You have these different laddering properties and weapons. So once again, this will probably exist again in a future edition of the game. Or in not in a future edition. That makes it seem like I'm ending the product life cycle before it begins. But in like a supplemental core rulebook or something that has more weapons. We have the spiked chain, which is kind of in the whip flail ballparks here, as far as properties and features. And then we had a basic idea that we wanted to include firearms at some point. Firearms are actually going to be making it into the core rulebook. We just don't have it presently drafted at the moment, but that will probably be a stream in and of itself as we talk about what that design would include, what that would look like. So yeah, let's go ahead and get rid of some of these spaces there. We want to keep at least one. So that is kind of where we stand as far as our weapon tables. What I think it would be good to do now is let's go ahead and split screen this here, both on the same tab, and then we make sure that our table is properly up to date with these changes here, so that way we can start putting in reach and range properties. We can make sure our properties and flourishes are correct, as well as our damage dice. So this is just going to be going back over, checking our work. So boomerang here, 1d6 bludgeoning damage. It has returning weapon. It has fall. It has does not have a reach. Range is indeterminate. Once again, range, we're going to work out kind of what all that can be once we learn the proper ranges for weapon attacks in this game. Club here, it has Stormer, Falter. Yes, it has reach of melee. Feet. Oh no, why does that have to go on 2 lines there? Okay, table properties here. We're gonna fix this. Weapon column here. If I get rid of that 1 there, it will make this go 2 lines. Don't like it. Gonna have to Go to 1 there. Up this by 1. There we go. Melee 5 feet. So stay there. Then we're probably going to want range here. Have another bonus. 0.9 point. This here still stays at what, 6.5. Disappointing. Okay, so then we can go ahead with club there. Club does not have a range. It has a reach. Dagger has a reach melee of 5 feet, and it does also have. Dart does not have a reach, but it does have. Oh, hang on. Properties. I forgot part of it. The 1d6 slashing for the dagger, backstabber, finesse, versatile. Yes. We're not throwing wound on here because every weapon gets wound. Wound is the basic critical hit function, and so it exists on all weapons and is not required to be trained with. So yeah, dart here. We have finesse, decelerate, wound. Finesse, decelerate, wound. Dart does not have a reach, but it does have an indeterminate range at this point in time. Okay, so great club, boorish strike. Let's go ahead and start putting in the numbers here. 1d10, siege implement. 1d10. Oh, that made it so much longer. You know, maybe we don't. Let's just. Yeah, let's not. That's 4 lines of properties and approaches, which just, man, that's a lot. Okay, so great club here. It has a melee 5-foot range. It does not have. Sorry, it does not have a range. It has a melee 5-foot reach. Hatchet. Hatchet 1d6 slashing. This has a reach and a range. Reach is melee, range is permanent, finesse versatile. Light crossbow. Finesse loading sneak attacker. No melee, indeterminate range. Mace. Siege implement. Atrophy crush. Yep. 1d6 piercing. Melee 5 foot. No range. Morning Star 1d4 and 1d4. Melee 5 foot. And no range. Two-handed falter sun. Yep. Alright, quarterstaff here. Let's see here. 1d6 bludgeoning. Adroit Stormer versatile. Adroit. We're not putting the dice in there, so we can get rid of that. Stormer versatile. It has a melee 5 foot and no range. There we go. Scythe 2d4 slashing. 2d4 slashing. Range of 5 foot melee. Does not have a reach of melee 5 foot. Gosh. Properties. Two-handed wren. Short bow finesse. Loading swift quiver two-handed. Finesse loading swift quiver two-handed. 1d8 piercing. Yes. No melee. Indeterminate range. All right. Sickle is going to be melee, reach of 5 feet, no range, finesse versatile. Yep. Sling. I believe this is one we made adjustments to. 1d4 bludgeoning. Has a no melee, but it does have an indeterminate range. We have loading. We have us. Yes. Okay, so we already added that in, and fault. All right. Spear. Phalanx formation, reach, stormer, versatile, decelerate. Yes. So spear has a melee reach of 2. Special. And since that's so long, it can already fine. It can go on to the 2. I'll just live with it. An indeterminate range there. Unarmed strike has a melee no range. Autonomy and wound. So it just shows up as autonomy. Whip. Okay, so whips are weird. Simple ranged weapon. Yeah, I think that's how it would be. So it's not going to have a melee range. It's probably just going to have a short. Sorry, it's not going to have a melee reach. It's going to have a short range. Yeah. Okay. Martial weapons. 1d10 slashing for the battle axe. Adroit. We don't need to put the die there. Actually, the same is going to go for this one here as well. So 1d10 slashing, melee range of 5, melee reach of 5 feet. No range property there. Adroit crush rend. Adroit crush rend. All right, broadsword, martial melee weapon, 1d8 slashing. Yes, yes, yes. Adroit atrophy decelerate. Adroit atrophy decelerate. Melee 5-foot reach, no range. Cutlass, martial melee weapon, so that's going to be melee 5-foot, no range. Backstabber versatile decelerate. Backstabber versatile decelerate. 2d4 slashing. All right. Flail, melee 5-foot, no range. That's going to be adroit. Atrophy, concuss, crush. Adroit, atrophy, concuss, crush. We can remove that d10 there since we're not listing damage. We're not listing bonus dice on properties there. Glaive, 1d10 slashing. Glaive, 1d10 slashing. Reach is going to be melee at 10 feet. Let's go ahead and get that changed there because it has the reach property. Okay. So yeah, melee. 10 feet. We have no range there. We have reach, two-handed, rend, and wound. Yep, reach, two-handed, rend, and wound. Greatsword, 2d6 slashing, two-handed atrophy, melee at 5 feet, no range. Halberd is 1d10 piercing, melee 10 feet, melee 10 feet, no range. Reach, two-handed tripping string, reach, two-handed tripping string. Alright, heavy crossbow. No melee, indeterminate reach, heavy weaponry, loading two-handed, heavy weaponry, loading two-handed, crush, rend, sunder, crush, rend, and sunder. All right. Lance. Bit of an itch there. Alright, Lance. 1d10 piercing. 1d10 piercing. Melee 10 feet. Lance does not have a range. Reach Cavalier strikes Sunder. Reach Cavalier strikes Sunder. Longbow. 1d10 piercing. 1d10 piercing. Deadeye. Heavy weaponry. Loading. Swift quiver. Two-handed. Decelerate. Deadeye. Heavy weaponry. Loading. Swift quiver. Two-handed. Decelerate. Awesome. No melee. Indeterminate range. Alright, so longsword comes up next. So we are going to get rid of the die in adroit. Longsword, 1d8 slashing. Melee 5 foot. No range property there. Adroit, versatile, falter. Adroit, versatile, falter. Maul, 1d10 bludgeoning. 1d10 bludgeoning. Melee 5 foot. Two-handed crush. Two-handed crush. No ranged property. Rapier. Melee 5 foot. No range property. Backstabber. Finesse. Versatile. Backstabber. Finesse. Versatile. Scimitar. 1d8 slashing. Melee 5 foot. No ranged property. Finesse. Versatile. Rend. Finesse. Versatile. Rend. Short sword. Finesse, atrophy, decelerate. Finesse, atrophy, decelerate. 1d8 slashing. 1d8 slashing. Melee 5 foot. No range. Shuriken. 1d8 piercing. No melee. Indeterminate range. Finesse, sneak attack, atrophy, rend. Finesse, sneak attack. Atrophy, rend. Let's go. Trident. Okay, so we have reach, so that's going to be melee 10 foot. We have no range. We have no range property there. We have reach 2-handed, rend and sunder. Reach 2-handed, rend and sunder. And then finally we have Warhammer. Warhammer siege implement, 2-handed concuss, crush, decelerate. Siege implement, 2-handed concuss, crush, decelerate. That is going to be a melee at 5 foot with no range. Alright, so that's going to be our weapons table. We don't have the range set up yet, so we can still work on playtesting and prototyping what all that should be, what all a reasonable range for certain implements can be. I think that is a good table for just having in the book there. We'll have firearms and such coming in later, of course. As far as properties go, as properties and flourishes, I think that puts us in a very, very good spot. So let's go ahead, and I think we can bring this text over into our and then it'll just be a whole lot of adding comments to weapon ranges. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this selected and brought over to our Word document here. So that's going to be a good bit of formatting. Love how it's so small. Okay, so core weapons area here is going to be adventuring equipment. There we go, weapons. Add this all in. It's going to take a second to load all of our formatting. So what we can do here, because once again, we want to try and keep the headers not having to deal with getting swapped out back to black text. Next color here is going to be reset to black. Go, weapon proficiency, all that stuff that was written outside of stream. There we go. Boom. Weapon training, all of that there. As far as our actual weapon tables themselves, even though this is heading 6, so that way we can index it on the left hand side here with just clicking weapons, we can jump ahead. It is formatted differently than what heading 6 normally is in black text, so basically all of our simple weapon area here, we can just go ahead and change the typeface color. Everything's gonna be fine. And the same can be said for martial weapons all the way down to where we propose the area for firearms. Is they're going to be a subset of martial weapons. Alright, so there we have it. I mean, that's 24 pages of weapons, but, you know, that will cook down for the actual RPG layout design. There's a lot of blank space on these tables that will be cleaned up substantially for a print. Okay, so I feel like that's a great spot to be. Actually, hang on. Let's go ahead and add in our comments, so that way we know what needs to be done. First things first is going to be addressing all of these indeterminate ranges. Come through. All right. Update the weapon table information from each weapon item. Create ranges based playtest and typical ranges effects in-game effects. Okay, so what we need to have here then, going to want to highlight ranges here. We're going to be adding a comment. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and get some of that core text here. Okay, so we're going to then create a default comment here for each of these instances of the blank range argument. Indeterminate range update based on playtesting and typical range of in-game events. Go copy that, since that's going to be a common comment. Melee 5 foot. Then we're going to just throw that default onto anything that says range. Okay. So we add that there, comment. Okay, and reach. Oh, there's a range. Okay. Here. All right. So what we can do here, since right now what we're doing is just adding in known issues and bugs to our table. We're just adding in comments here for ranges that are indeterminate. So this is just going to be a kind of blanket for ranged weapons in the game right now, so that way we can look at other in-game effects and properties that have ranges that are outside of a character's melee reach, and we can then learn and base things off of that. So once again, if it has the reach property, then we can have different scaling because of it. Missed a range there. Let's go ahead and that's kind of what's going on now. I think stream is probably winding a little bit down for today, just since we have reached our objective and have all everything nice and organized here. have 12 there, and we have 12 comments. Perfect. Oh, so let's go ahead and okay. Here. Add those sections. Here for this. And down at the end, we're going to have description here, which is going to get that same comment. And then we're also going to have information here about and just charts. All right, so that's all stuff that we are going to be able to come back to at a later date, just to address a lot of these comments and bugs. But as far as having a functioning weapon system in the game and in the core text that is kind of a going standard final copy of the rules, we now have something that is up to date with the current idea iteration standing of the game. You can now attack people. So I think that that is a fantastic place to begin winding down the stream. Let's go ahead and look to rating. Once again, because I want to try and get better about let's so give me one quick second as I peer through here. Let's see. Where is go? Raid browser. Anything that we see chat that immediately jumps out at you that you want to hit up? I'm looking for world stuff. what all do we see? In the D&D game. A lot of live gameplay, which is fair. That's usually what it is. So many people use AI for their stream layouts and stuff. It just looks better. It just looks better. Lazy. Genuinely. I will not. I will not rate out to AI tools. I don't see any AI there. Immediately. All right. All right. Well, it's been a great stream, guys. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I'm going to go ahead and get this raid beginning. So, without further ado, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys take care and stay awesome. Where is my... There we go. Boom. Thank you for watching.